Hey folks, thank you for joining me for another deep dive. We're using this as an opportunity to go deep into some of the ideas that we're exploring in Andromeda Entertainment and that I'm exploring as a sort of participant in culture. What I'm here to do, my mission, if you like, is to shift this giant boat of video games more and more towards awakening and consciousness. I've had my own awakening experiences. My first one was about 10 years ago, and it was that first oneness experience that I've got a new metaphor for this that I really like. It's that first oneness experience. In the ashes of that experience, visiting the sort of remains in the ashes of that experience, months later I found, just buried in the ashes, the design, the blueprint for what ultimately became Sound Self. So, for me, Sound Self really came directly from an awakening experience, and it's put me on a journey that guides me to this day, which is a recognition that our technology, specifically for me, it's interactive entertainment technology, gaming, can be used for radically different purposes than we've been using it. We've been using gaming as more or less, I think, a diversionary or entertainment experience, but we can use these things to radically hack identity and radically change people's experience of what it is to be alive, just in the same way that ritual does this, just in the same way that plant medicines do this. So I call these sorts of experiences technodelics. So for this deep dive, I'm going to be going into some of the ideas that I explored at Future Frontiers about a month ago now. The theme here is 5 reasons that video games will be a key to global awakening. Every week we're going to be tackling one of these 5 reasons, and then in 5 weeks we'll start with another topic. So the first reason is that game design is already a hack for identity. So every week for the next 5 weeks, we're going to go deeply, more deeply than I did in the talk, into one of those 5 reasons why game design will help reshape humanity's relationship with self and with the divine and with whatever woo-woo words you want to use. I love all my woo-woo words, but it's all the same. So firstly, game design is already a hack for identity. Whatever your spiritual practice is, whatever your awakening practice is, identity work is so important to it. Who you are, who you think you are, determines how you act out, determines what you're capable of doing, and so much of this work is about breaking down and discarding old concepts of who we are and embracing deeper and more full experiences of who we are, which of course then eventually become concepts of their own that have to get discarded, and that's just an ongoing process. But identity is so core to determining our limitations and determining what we can do. A friend of mine shared a story with me once. David Swedlow, if you're here, hello. I hope I'm not outing you. I am outing you. So David shared with me this wonderful story that I really like. He met a goddess on a psychedelic journey. Deep in the depths of a psychedelic journey, this goddess appeared to him, and the goddess said, You called? You asked to speak to me? What do you want? And David said, whoa! This goddess suddenly appearing in front of him. What do I want? I want the answers. Okay, you want the answers. That's a good one. You can have the answers. You just have to let go of what you think you are. Our story about what we are dictates what we can do. If you think of yourself in your role, and say you're in your professional role, you're really limited by the frame that your employers have given you, or that your profession gives you. If you think of yourself in your role as a family, you understand how this works. I think anybody who's done any deep internal investigation recognizes this. I can recognize so many of my my roles that I'm sure give me power in some ways, but limit me in other ways. Even just here, sitting in front of the camera, there's the the idea of myself as like a imparting some wisdom or something, which if I shift gears a little bit now and recognize like, oh, I can use this as a moment of meditation to learn, I could probably actually do a better job of this. So our identity determines what we can do. Our identity also has a great deal to determine our joy in what we do. And video games are already a tremendous hack to identity. I think more so than fiction. Fiction is wonderful for this. When you read a story, you really put yourself in the shoes of that character. You can't help but do this. So you put yourself in the shoes of that character, you walk their hero's journey with them, and you learn with them, alongside of them. You kind of try on their skin and try on their shoes and learn something with them. So video games do this to sort of to the nth degree, because you're actually playing out the system. So when you play Mario, for example, you don't think, I press this button and it makes this set of pixels move up and then move down again. Nobody thinks that. You don't even think I made Mario jump. You think I jumped. So there's already this extension of identity that is happening in video games when we play a video game. That is amazing. Like, let's just take a moment and recognize the sort of miracle of psychology that happens there when you play a video game. And then once you recognize that miracle of psychology, the question immediately avails itself to you, whoa, if this is just what happens in any case when I play a video game, can't I use this mechanism to have a player practice being something, experiencing themselves as something radically different? A game design is just a system of rules that leaves an implied negative space, and as you fill that implied negative space, you take on the role implied by that negative space. And video games are like an extreme example of this, but this happens all the time in any system of rules in our culture. Like, think you go to check out something at the grocery store, you're taking on a certain role implied by the person in the checkout counter. So you're not going to go to the checkout counter and start tickling the person behind the counter or something, or start, I don't know, like, there's so many inappropriate things you just know what to do. You take on the role of, like, I put my things on the cart, then I pay my money, and then I go. And that simplifies the process. It's great. But you're playing a game there, and the game gives you a role. So a video game is that to such an exaggerated degree that you really embody something new. Your whole sensory apparatus is especially in virtual reality, is there to support you taking on this new identity. And I think we could do, I know we can do really amazing things with that shift in identity. There's a sort of layer one in this is, how do I practice being a character that experiences the world in a novel, new way, you know? But then how do I use this extension of identity that already happens to break the mold of character altogether? And that's for I might go into that in some other deep dive here, because I think we do that pretty effectively in Sound Self. But my point is that video games already do extend a person's identity, and we can extend a person's identity to have them radically experience themselves not only like a little different and try something new on, but actually experience themselves in a radically different way. All right, thanks for joining me. Pop in again next week, and we're going to be going into the idea of practice and how video games fit into practice. Thank you.